Good morning. I'll hereby call to order the special meeting of August 7, 2018. Roll call, please.
Mr. Balestria.
Present.
Mr. DeJohn.
Here.
Mrs. Finney.
Here.
Mr. Mano. Mrs. Sabetta.
Here.
Mrs. Snyder.
Here.
Mrs. Tressi.
Here. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We only have one item today on our agenda, Resolution 2018-49. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution number 2018-49, an ordinance declaring the necessity for an election on November 6, 2018, on the question of approving the adoption of ordinance number 2018-25, amending Chapter 794 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Mayfield Heights titled Earned Income Tax Regulations, effective beginning January 1, 2016, by increasing the rate of municipal income tax set in Section 794.01 thereof from 1% per year to 1.5% per year, directing the Board of Elections to conduct the election, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Can I have a motion, please, to suspend the rules?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Balestria, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call, please, Lisa.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Tressi.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes. We will now, do I have a motion to approve, please? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, seconded by Mrs. Snyder. Mr. Murphy?
Yes, this resolution is a supplement to ordinance number 2018-25, which was previously adopted by council. Ordinance number 2018-25 authorized the placement of the 1% to 1.5% income tax increase on the ballot by amending Chapter 794 of the Codified Ordinances of the city to change the 1% to 1.5%. That ordinance provided that that increase would only take effect if there was a majority of the electorate who voted in favor of the income tax increase. That was the first ordinance that was passed by council. State law provides that there should be a second piece of legislation, a resolution, which specifically says that council should declare the necessity for the election, give the date of the election, the amount of the income tax increase, and specifically direct the Board of Elections to conduct the election. That should also be submitted to the Board of Elections along with the original ordinance or in supplement to the original ordinance. What is before council this morning is the resolution which declares the necessity for the election, gives the date of the election, and directs the Board of Elections to conduct the election. The original ordinance had all of that information and direction in it, but state law as it now stands, and I believe it was amended January 1st, 2016, indicates that a resolution is also necessary. I talked to the Board of Elections, and they said the original ordinance may be sufficient, but it'll be up to the Secretary of State. So discretion being the better part of valor, I thought it was better to adopt the resolution and give them exactly what they want so that there is no question that this matter can be voted on by the electorate in the city of Mayfield Heights on November 6, 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Mr. Murphy, I have a question. So when it says in here effective beginning January 1st, 2016, that's when the tax, I'm a little confused about.
No, the title of Chapter 794 of the codified ordinances is in quotes there, Earned Income Tax Regulations effective beginning January 1st, 2016. The state income tax ordinance that allows municipalities to tax on income was amended significantly at the end of 2015, might have been early 2015. Anyway, it was effective 2016, January 1st. So there's two provisions in our codified ordinances regarding income tax. One is before January 1st, 2016, and the second is effective January 1st, 2016. So if you earned income in 2015, it was under one ordinance. If you earned income in 2016 or thereafter, it is under the second ordinance. So in order to differentiate, and that's the statute I was talking about, the state significantly changed the income tax ordinance, the state income tax ordinance, effective January 1st, 2016. So all of this is effective January 1st, 2016.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. DeJohn?
Thank you, Madam President. We're here today because our leadership made an error and did not understand the proper filing of paperwork with the Board of Elections for the income tax increase to make it on the 2018 general election ballot. Now we need to correct this error and get this on the ballot by the deadline date of this Wednesday, August 8th, 2018. So if you all remember, ordinance number 2018-25, as Mr. Murphy stated, was already adopted by this council on June 25th, 2018, by Mrs. Snyder, Mrs. Sabetta, Mrs. Finney, and Mr. Balestria. They all voted to place this tax increase on the November 2018 ballot. They had no problem at that time voting yes for this ballot language, knowing that if approved by the voters of Mayfield Heights, this tax increase money will go into the general fund and not be totally earmarked for our infrastructure projects. I voted no along with Mr. Mano and Mrs. Teresi. I wanted this income tax money to be earmarked for infrastructure projects only. I wanted it to be used for roads, redevelopment, parks, and pools only. The way the current ballot issue reads is very confusing, misleading, and makes the voters believe that this money will be used for infrastructure improvements. Yes, that is partially true, as this money will go into the general fund and be appropriated by council for many types of city needs, such as salaries, health insurance benefits, pensions, retirement payouts, equipment, automobiles, gas, tuition assistance, training, travel expenses, so on and so on. This money will be used for many expenses, thus limiting the amount that will be directed to our badly neglected roads. I was told by Mr. Tribby that this tax money could not be earmarked specifically for infrastructure projects such as streets and parks. Either I misunderstood Mr. Tribby or Mr. Tribby did not understand what I was asking. Recently, the City of Euclid just passed their resolution number 101-2018 to place a 2 mil levy tax increase on the November 2018 ballot. This ballot language reads in part, an income tax increase of 2 mils for the purpose of the general construction, reconstruction, resurfacing, and repairs of streets, roads, and bridges in the city. So what that tells me is that we can earmark money just for the repairs of our roads and parks. However, this administration does not want their spending ability to be limited. So I ask myself, what plans do they have for this money? Now we come to a point where I'm deciding to vote to place this language on the ballot due to someone making an error in the initial filing. To understand now what has happened, we need 5 votes to approve an emergency measure and fix the filing error with the resolution. As you can see, Mr. Mano's not here, so it would take at least 5 of us in attendance, requiring us to vote yes to place this on the ballot for the 2018 election. After very carefully contemplating this situation, I come to the following conclusion. The city has spent a lot of money to date explaining this tax increase to voters, and I do not want that money to be wasted. Although I voted no to spend the money on that type of program, educating the voters, it would be now very wasteful not to be placing this issue on the ballot. In addition, there was enough time to, if there was enough time to correct the filing error by having 3 readings and then a vote by council, this resolution would pass because the same 4 council representatives, Mrs. Snyder, Mrs. Sabetta, Mrs. Finney, and Mr. Ballestreet, would vote yes for it again. Although under normal circumstances I would vote a resounding no on this resolution, I do not want to penalize the voters of Mayfield Heights on a technicality and prevent them from making the final decision. So today I will vote yes to place this on the 2018 November ballot with the understanding to the voters of Mayfield Heights that I do not support this ballot issue with the way it is written and the potential income tax money going into the general fund. I will vote no on this issue in the November 2018 general election. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, Mrs. Teresi?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Let me say this, I also am not in favor of the tax increase, which you know, because I've already voted no before. We all know that state and federal funding has decreased. It just did not decrease yesterday. It's been happening over the last so many years, and not today. The estate funds were eliminated years ago. And our finance director is a brilliant man. He knew that the funds were decreasing. But when some of us on council asked if the city could ask the departments to cut their budget, we were told cutting a budget 10% was nothing. So of course, we did not cut the budget. So how do you expect residents to pay when the city has done nothing to cut back on their expenses? 3 years ago, the city staff and department heads got a 3% raises per year. In 2018, the city staff and department heads will get another 2.25% in 2018, 3% in 2019, and in 2020, 3% as well. So who do we think is going to pay for that? We spend over $2 million a year on health care, and that's just this year. We were very fortunate, if I'm not mistaken, that the health care only increased 3.8%, but there could be increases that are much higher than that in years to come, with the cost of health care increasing daily. City departments heads have cars, the service department gets new equipment. We spend a great deal of money on consultants, we spent a great deal of money on the design corridor. Yet, when a few council members asked our compliance officer 3 years ago about cutting back on raises, it was said that the union would see that we have a lot of unencumbered funds, so unions felt that we could give these raises. Well, how do you give these raises? That was 3 years ago. We're in another 3-year contract. How do you give these additional raises and then ask residents who didn't get those raises to pay for a tax increase? When I asked our service director a few weeks ago why the city, when the city had over 11 million in unencumbered funds, why didn't we fix some of the roads then and really repair the roads, not just the chip and seal, even one at a time? And I was told it was done differently in the past. Well, I don't know what that means. The city had money then. Some of our roads have not been repaired since the 60s, and this year we've borrowed $4 million to fix the roads, and next year it'll be another $2 to $4 million. So today we need a tax increase. Where did all of that money go when we were not fixing the roads over the last 5 to 10 years? How did that money slip away? You cannot blame less revenue on only the state and federal government. You have to blame the city for not being good fiscal managers. It went to raises, it went to health care, it went to filling employees' HSA and HRA accounts, and maybe it went to some needless spending. The wording in the resolution is misleading. You know you need the tax increase dollars for pay raises and health care, but you're hiding that under the operations wording in the resolution, and to me that's unfair morally and ethically. Just tell the truth on what the money's gonna be used for. New equipment, infrastructure, increased health costs, etc. Don't put a spin on where the money is going to go. The residents are really smarter than you think. So if I decide that my vote is a yes, it is only because I know you need the vote to get this resolution on the ballot, because maybe one of the four people, Mrs. Snyder, Mrs. Sabetta, Mr. Balestray, and Mrs. Finney, weren't going to be present today. So I wanted to be clear to the residents, I am not in favor of the tax increase. I'm not in favor of going to the residents to say, please give more when the city's not fiscally responsible with the money that they have. I was not in favor of hiring Malamed Group as a consultant, and I'm not in favor of how the city has spent the money that they've had and now want the taxpayers to pay more. No matter who the taxpayers are, residents, outsiders, it doesn't make a difference. It seems unfair. And my last point is due diligence. How did this last minute trial by fire resolution come up? Whose responsibility was it to make sure if you were asking the residents for more tax dollars that you crossed all of your T's and dotted all of your I's? Was it Malamed, who ran the campaign in South Euclid and Shaker? Was it the mayor, who ran in many elections, so he knows that there's always something to do and some restrictions to get on the ballot? Or was it our law director? Someone messed up, and now this morning, here we are, trial by fire. We need 5 votes to pass this. If the tax increase was important, and if the administration was concentrating on that, then it would have assumed we would not be needing this new resolution. So my final and closing statement is, I am not in favor of the tax increase. If I have to vote to get it on the resolution, so be it, but I never want to hear the words, well, you voted for it, later, because I've heard those words before when we've commented on things that have passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Teresi. Anybody else? Roll call, please.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi,
Yes?
Mr. Balestria,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
excuse me, Mrs. Finney.
Yes. Resolution 2018-49 has been adopted. If there's no further business before council, I ask for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, seconded by Mr. DeJohn. Roll call, please. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.